Hey, and welcome to Leadershipisation, all things leadership. My name is Beth Bergen, and I am a global leadership and communication coach. My thing is that I work with executives, with managers, and with business owners, and it's all about building their leadership and communication skills so that they can lead with influence. And what this means is that they then get to lead cohesive teams, they get to be able to drive the results, and really importantly, they increase their visibility, whether that's their visibility in the organization or whether it's their visibility in their sector. And so, what that means is that many more opportunities become available to them. I'm here live most Tuesdays at 1 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. That's Brisbane time. And currently in Sydney and Melbourne, that is 2 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time. Now, we're talking today about a bit of a leadership reset. So, if I was to ask you, how is your leadership spark right now? Not your performance, not your output, but your spark, what would you say? I think that you'd be like many others that I've spoken to. Some of us actually burn out really dramatically, but others of us are just kind of dim. Keep showing up, keep making decisions, keep leading teams. But if I know what's going on with many of you right now, that energy, that creativity, that sense of purpose is just quietly fading away because sometimes leadership starts to feel really heavy. And other times it can just feel same old, same old. It can feel really quite dull. You're still capable, you're still respected, you're still delivering, but that spark, the curiosity, the fire, the passion, the sense of why this matters, maybe that's dimmed. Maybe that's just gone out a little bit. And a lot of us don't want to talk about that, particularly at this time of the year when we're feeling really tired. And why don't we? We don't want to talk about it because it feels a lot like failure. And because it feels like failure, yeah, we don't want to even go there. Quiet competence on the surface, but exhaustion underneath. So today isn't about pushing harder. Today isn't about getting motivated. It's about recognizing that your leadership actually needs a reset. And it's all about how to use the time away from work to reconnect with you as a leader and not just with what you actually do. So, we've got some key points to have a talk to. The first one of these is this: losing your spark doesn't mean that you're failing. Losing your spark doesn't mean that you're failing. Flatness is often a signal that we've been working at a high level over a sustained period of time. So it's not actually a weakness on your part. And what we know is that high performing leaders burn energy quite quietly. If you're a high performing leader, there's not a lot of drama attached to your energy burn. You're just doing it quietly. And losing that spark equal does not equal losing capability. What it means is that something needs a recalibration. And while you're out having some time away from work, this might be exactly the time that you need to be recalibrating. Because sometimes when we're leaders, we mistake or we misinterpret fatigue as a lack of motivation. And that fatigue can be felt really deeply. That flatness, that disengagement, or that easy irritation, they're signals. They're signals that you need to step back a bit, not weaknesses. It doesn't mean that you're failing. Leaders like a lot of the leaders that I work with, a lot of the leaders that I have experienced, they often ignore these signs because they're still functioning. So they're an exhausted, fully functioning leader. However, there's a danger. There's a danger that's associated with that, that you're actually normalizing this emotional depletion as part of leadership. And it's not. It's not. When we lose that spark, it's much more often from a misalignment between what we're doing, what the organization requires us to do, than it is about an incompetence. So make sure that you don't think that losing your spark means that you're failing. The second thing is this: it's easier to release this emotional weight when you actually recognize that it exists. As I said, we don't want to normalize this as part of leadership. There, there comes decision fatigue. Um, there's an emotional residue that you get because of the amount of time that you feel being responsible for outcomes and for people. So not only, as I said, is there that decision fatigue, there's also I'm emotionally a bit wrung out because of all this responsibility, because of the people that I've had to deal with. And this can be as simple as holding space for others while you're actually, often when we're holding space for other people, we're neglecting our own inner growth, our own inner world. We're ignoring what's going on inside us because we're holding that space for others. And as a leader, we know that we need to be strong. And what that often means is that we're so busy being strong for others, the organization, people who might be a bit shaky in their roles right now, that what that can do is it can delay the us actually taking and having the necessary rest that we need to do. And importantly, it's also delays that necessary reflection. We don't have time because we're moving all the time from one thing to another. And what happens as a result of that is that this unresolved, this undealt with emotional load actually starts to wear us out. It weighs heavy and it takes away from our positive drive, it takes away from our creativity. Instead of seeing what might and can go right, we look at what's likely to go wrong and we focus because our emotional load leans us towards that negativity. Also, we can be in our leadership role from an emotional perspective, have a whole lot of output. It's a whole lot of output happening and not a lot of meaning coming back to us, not a lot coming back to us. So there's a lot of that emotional energy because we're constantly available to other people. And that may mean that we're not necessarily intentional, that we're not actually shutting the door and getting on with the work that we need to be doing. Many leaders that I work with are leading others really well. They're not necessarily leading themselves very well. They're not checking in to see how they're going. And they carry that responsibility of being a leader without taking that time back, that step back to replenish. And that's what this is all about. You're having a bit of a break over this time. Let's make sure that urgency is not your driver. Let's make sure that you're able to shift back to your purpose being your driver, because of that way, you're going to be able to draw on new emotional reserves rather than feeling all the time like you're in this reactive urgency. I've got to be doing this. I've got to be doing this. Yeah. The third thing to have a look at is this. It's important, if you're going to reset, that you take time away from your role. That's really important. Now, I'm going to say something now that will seem really obvious. However, for many of us, it's not. You can't reset inside the environment that drains you. So you can't reset at work. You've got to actually step away from your role because, excuse me, that distance creates perspective. That distance gives you that perspective. And once you've got that perspective, you're much more likely to move back to a position of clarity. It's likely to restore the clarity for you. And that's really important. So, what I want to remind you of as we come up to, for many people, an enforced, excuse me, an enforced period of time away, like many organizations, many businesses close down. Everyone has to take a break at this period of time. You know, people are stood down for this period of time. Make sure that when you are on leave, you're actually taking leave and not mentally staying on. It's important that you separate who you are from what you do. So when you take your leave, don't be thinking all the time, oh, there's a sense of urgency. I've got to be hammering away here. So some of us go on holiday because it's just a bit of a distraction. What I would really encourage you to do is to make sure that your leave, the time you're away from work, is restorative. So it's not a distraction. We want it to be restorative. And so during that time, and this is what our session next week will be all about, during that time, it's a great idea to get that rest and to also have some reflection, because when you rest without the reflection, it's kind of a temporary relief, but it's not actually a renewal. So it's a bit hard to reset without that reflection. And so what happens is that some leaders come back to work and they're rested, but they're still disconnected because they've not done that reflection and they haven't switched off totally from work and reconnected to themselves. They haven't actually reflected to think, how is it that I can go back to work? You know, what do I need to change now so that when I go back to work, I'm feeling much more connected? So what I love about reconnecting, and this is the fourth point, is that reconnecting with you is what brings you back to authenticity. So it's about remembering the kinds of things that energized you before the role became heavy. It's reconnecting with your curiosity, with your purpose, with your values, rather than your KPIs. It's not always about performance. It's about noticing the sorts of things that light you up when nobody else is watching. And it's about reminding yourself that the spark returns through your identity, through your authenticity, rather than through productivity. Because productivity can feel like grind, grind, grind all the time. And what I really encourage you to do is to start to remember what actually matters to you in your role. What matters to you, not just what other people might be requiring of you, because that can feel like you're being pushed all the time and it's not necessarily giving you that sense of connection, that sense of purpose. So while you're away, a great way for you to reconnect with yourself is to separate your title from your identity while you're away. And hopefully, if you're deliberate about doing that, you'll get to reclaim that curiosity. You'll get to reclaim that creativity and that perspective that makes you an authentic and a successful leader, because our clarity about who we are and who we want to be as a leader is much more likely to arrive when we're reflecting, when we're quiet, when we're still, than it is if what we're doing is pounding into, I've got to have a strategy, I've got to do this, and then I do that. Yeah. What I'd like to share with you now are some tools that you can use over this holiday period to reignite your spark. And these are designed to restore your energy, to reconnect you, with your aliveness, and to gently reset that momentum. It's not at all about analyzing your performance as a leader. So I think I've got 5 of these, but it might only be 4. Let's wait and see. So the first one is what I call the energy reboot walk. And this is about moving first and thinking second. So instead of thinking your way back to clarity, move your body. So go for a walk without a podcast, without a phone, without an agenda. Just go for a walk. And halfway through that walk, ask yourself one question. What gives me energy when no one needs anything from me? Think about that question. I'll say it again. What gives me energy when no one needs anything from me? Like as a parent, a partner, a leader, a workmate, often people need things from us. What gives me energy when no one needs anything from me? Now, trick here is don't solve it, just notice it. Just notice it. Movement and space are going to bring you answers much faster than sitting and thinking. Yeah. The second one is the I miss reset. I miss reset. Now, this one's important because when our lights faded, when burnout might be, 4 weeks away, it often hides, when our light is dim, it often hides what's quietly disappeared. So think about this. Finish this sentence 5 times. I miss laughter. I miss timeout. I miss whatever it might be. Finish it 5 times. Now, this isn't about I should, I need, I must. It's not those. Miss equals a desire trying to get your attention. Maybe you miss walking on the beach. Maybe you miss quiet time. This is designed to reconnect you with what you want rather than some kind of obligation. So not I should, not I must, not I need, I miss. This is a really powerful activity to do. The third one is this. This is about, I call this one the play before purpose approach. And this is like, what's this based on? You don't find your spark by chasing purpose. You find purpose after you've had some play. So this is what I want you to do. Schedule one non-productive activity this week, purely because it feels good. Non-productive, no learning, no growth, no outcome, joy first. Meaning follows. Have a go at doing that and let me know exactly what you came up with as your non-productive activity. There's lots of different things that you could do. The fourth tip to reconnect you with yourself is this one. It's what I call the identity unhook. And this is all about Really, it's designed to drop that role because we spend so much time being in that role. Drop that role and reclaim a human because we lose our spark when we forget who they are, who we are, rather. We lose that spark when we forget who we are without all of that responsibility. So it's all about asking, if no one knew my title for a week, how would I spend my days? How would I spend my days? Like, then do one small thing that's aligned to that answer. Because what we want to do is we want to come back to self leadership because we're kind of loosening off that feeling of role based identity. You are you. You are not your job. Your job is not you. Your title is not you. You are you. You're a human being. So it's about being rather than doing all the time. And that's what the bulk of these tips are. Now, I thought I had 4 or 5. I've actually got 6, I realized. So the next one, number 5, is this: the body knows check in. The body knows check-in. So come back and let's explore what our body knows, because when we've lost our spark, it's physical before it's cognitive. So once a day while you're on the break, ask, am I tired, tense, or overstimulated? Do I need rest? Do I need movement? Or do I need quiet? And then respond immediately with a small adjustment. If you're tired and you need movement, go do it. Now, what I love about this, our body knows what's going on and it will tell us the answers. So what's awesome for you to do here is to respond immediately with that small adjustment, but understand that this is going to rebuild that trust between you and yourself. And that's a core self-leadership skill, to have that trust, to be listening to your body. The final one is this one. It's a gentle re-entry anchor. When your spark's dimmed and you return to work, even if you've reconnected, when you return to work and you try to do and change everything at once, the spark goes out again quite quickly. So what's important is that you choose one anchor for when you return, one boundary, one process, one rhythm, one behavior that you're not going to compromise on. Not 10 things, but one thing. Write it down, and that's the thing that you're going to run with. Momentum builds and beats, rather, that overhaul of anything that you're going to do. Now, these tools are going to rebuild your energy before your ambition. They're going to restore that self-trust and give you a little bit more than insight. And they're also going to strengthen that self-leadership by responding to those internal signals. And if your spark's gone out, that's probably what you haven't been listening to. So I know that these 6 tools will really help you to return clearer, with more clarity, and clarity, action will come from clarity, not just rested. So the spark isn't found by thinking harder, it's found by coming back to yourself first. So let's have a look at a couple of reflection questions. The first one is this: what part of my leadership identity feels tired, and what part is quietly asking to be renewed? What part of my leadership identity feels tired, and what part is quietly asking to be renewed? That's the first question. Second question is this: if I returned next year with more clarity, instead of more energy, what would I do differently? If I returned next year with more clarity instead of more energy, what would I do differently? Now, those deep reflection questions refer back to those 6 tools that I've given you to reconnect with yourself. So, in summary, losing your spark is a signal, it's not failure. Listen to what your body is telling you before you do burn out totally and it gets much worse for you. In order to reset, you have to put some distance between yourself and your role and your job. So, time away from the role, time away from the title allows you to reconnect with yourself. And finally, you don't need to push harder. It's not about thinking in 2026, I need to be hammering this and working much harder. You need to realign with you, realign with who you want to be as a leader, because that spark will return when leadership feels like it's you again. Yeah. So, thank you so much for being here today. If you've got any questions or comments, pop them on the platform that you're watching this on, and we will get back to you. If you have watched a replay, hashtag replay would be awesome, and reach out. I'll make sure that we get back to you. If you're interested in how you might be a better leader in 2026, I'll make sure that there's a link for a 30-minute call. Reach out. It won't be all salesy. It'll be me having a chat with you about what you need and how we might be able to work together. If you are watching this during your break, Merry Christmas. I hope that it's all about you reconnecting with yourself and with people that you care about. And I hope that you have a great rest and that it is restorative for you. Thank you so much. See you next week. Bye now.